These guys kept saying, hey, just keep going past the no's because the next no is actually getting you closer to the yes. Hello and welcome. You landed on Zero Limits Living. Every week, I bring you inspiration and information to transform your life. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. The show is now so popular you can see it or hear it on 1,000 platforms across the galaxy. Probably anything you can name, including Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, YouTube, and more. I'm putting all the episodes in one place, ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com. Go there and binge. Also, people are asking me about coaching. I started Miracles Coaching 20 years ago. It is proven, it is tested, it is trademarked. It's a system that works. Go to miraclescoaching.com, miraclescoaching.com. Also, I always tell people my latest program is mentaltimetravel.system.com. I know you're curious. Go to mentaltimetravelsystem.com. My latest book, Unexpected Kindness, on Amazon, or go to unexpectedkindnessbook.com and check it out. And the theme for today's show is kindness. And in order to pull this off, I've got the kindness guy here. Literally. Let me tell you who this is because I am so excited I can barely breathe. This man, I first came across him because I saw the TV show called The Kindness Diaries, and maybe you saw it. It also has a book to go with it called The Kindness Diaries. But he didn't write just one book. He also has a book called Live, Love, and Explore. He also has a book called Go Be Kind, and he has a new book coming out called Go Be Brave. They sent me a bio, but I'm not going to read it. I'm going to read what's in the back of his book, the one called Live, Love, and Explore. Leon Logothetis is a global adventurer, motivational speaker, and philanthropist. But it wasn't always that way. He was a London broker. He was depressed. He was unhappy, and he needed to do something about it. He saw a movie that awakened a seed in him, an inspiration, and we'll be talking about that. And because of that change and that decision, he's done a few things, including he teamed up with First Book and drove a car from London to Mongolia, raising money to buy 10,000 books for underprivileged children in America. He didn't stop there. He drove a vintage London taxi across America, giving free cab rides to the needy and working with Class Wish to bring hope back to the schools of America. He didn't stop there. He crossed America, the United Kingdom, and Europe on just $5, £5, and €5 a day, respectively, chronicling these trips on the TV series Amazing Adventures of a Nobody, which was broadcast across the world by National Geographic International and in a book of the same name. He didn't stop there. He circumnavigated the globe on his vintage yellow motorbike, Kindness One, while relying on the kindness of strangers. Along the way, he gave life-changing gifts to unsuspecting Good Samaritans, telling their stories on the TV series The Kindness Diaries, and in a book, the one I just held up, of the same name. Now, I can go on with the credentials and the adventures of this man, but I'd rather hear from him directly. Leon, how are you?
I'm very well. That was quite a marvelous introduction. I'm not sure what else I can say after that, but thank you.
I hope there's a lot more for you to say. and as I've gone through both of these books that I have in my hand, and the new book is coming out, the Go Be Brave, I have a few questions for you.
Sure.
Let's begin in the beginning. What I've noticed about inspiration is it very often comes through another means. So in other words, I get awakened because somebody else was awakened and told me about it, which triggered my awakening. My awakening, when I tell somebody else, can trigger somebody else to awaken and do something. You watched the movie. You want to talk about that for a minute? What was that movie that caused the domino effect for you?
Absolutely. So it was a movie called The Motorcycle Diaries, and it was
Mhm.
a romanticized version of Che Guevara traveling around South America, relying on kindness. And his father wanted him to be a doctor. And in the romanticized version of his life, it he didn't want to be a doctor, and he wanted to connect with people. So there was something so beautiful about that movie that really, really kind of ignited something in me that had been dormant for many years. And I say ignited in something that was dormant because when I was a kid, I was bullied very profoundly, and yeah, and I felt very, very alone for many, many, many years. But I had this one teacher, and I've shared this story so many times, but it's such a powerful story for me. I had this one teacher who would look at me in the eyes every day, and she would say to me, "I believe in you," every
Mm.
day. And I didn't realize what she was doing, but what she was doing was she was being kind. And she inspired me with her kindness. And that movie reignited that feeling of being treated with respect, that feeling of being treated with love. And that's kind of the domino started when I was with that teacher all those years ago.
Which is amazing. So after the teacher kind of planted a seed there, and you're watching the movie and you get this seed awakened, it's being watered, so to speak, and sunshine put on it, so to speak. What did you do? I mean, you didn't go out the door and start a wild adventure. What did you do next after seeing that movie?
Well, do you know what? Although I didn't start a wild adventure immediately after watching the movie, inside my soul, after I finished watching that movie, it ignited something in me where there was no turning back. I knew that I wasn't going to stay as being a broker. I knew that I needed to change my life and the way I was living. And it took a few months after the movie, but only a few months for me to actually have quit my job and started my first ever adventure. Which was the hitchhiking across America from Times Square to the Hollywood sign, relying on kindness.
Amazing. Uh, that one wasn't documented, was it? You didn't have a crew with you. You didn't have anybody taking pictures.
It actually was documented.
Oh,
Yeah, I had a friend who was in the TV world. I called him up and I said, "Hey, should we go and do this trip?" And he's like, "All right." So we got a few cameras and a few of us went and we did it. And to cut a long story short, I got very, very lucky and it ended up being aired on National Geographic International. And
ah,
it kind of all started from that moment, really.
mhm. Well, this leads to a couple behind the scene questions that maybe you've talked about before, maybe not, but I don't know the answer. When you have a camera crew like that, and I know you did when you did the Kindness Diaries, and apparently
Sure.
you did in the other things that you've been doing. How do you get them to stay out of your life in that moment? There were times in the Kindness Diaries where I had sweaty palms for you because I'm thinking, how is he going to, when you're stranded in Italy, for example, and the Kindness One is breaking down, and your crew is there. They can buy you a cup of coffee. They can get you a meal. They can go run for gas. How did you get these people from the first trip or any of the other trips not to intervene?
So basically, there was a hard, harsh rule, and the rule was that the crew couldn't help me because there's no point in doing this adventure if the crew can help me. So they never helped me. It was always me kind of connecting with people and getting help from them. I'd go up to, let's say, 10 people, and 9 people would say no, but I would always keep on going. And I would say, look, as long as I keep on going, there's always going to be one person who will help. And that's kind
Mhm.
of the same thing with life. Yes, there are people out there that maybe will treat you badly. But if you keep on looking, you will find the person that will treat you with respect. You will find the person that you can rely on. And kind of it mirrored my life, the kindness diaries and life itself.
This is pretty fascinating, but what you sound like is that you took a Zig Ziglar selling seminar or Tom Hopkins, and these guys kept saying, "Hey, just keep going past the no's because the next no is actually getting you closer to the yes."
So my philosophy of life, I actually stole from Winston Churchill. He has a very, very famous quote, and in that quote he says, "Never, never, never give up." And
Mm.
that was what I did on the journey. I was just not going to give up. I decided to circumnavigate the world. I decided to, hitchhike across America, hitchhike across Europe, drive from London to Mongolia, and nothing was going to stop me. Absolutely nothing. and it didn't.
I love your will, and I love that you made that kind of a decision. But it raises a couple important questions. One of them, do you consider yourself to be an introvert or an extrovert, or can you just kind of blend and do what's needed in the moment?
It's a great question. I am actually an introvert. There's
Ah,
there's 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 no doubt about that. If you watch the movie, if you watch, all the stuff I've done, you'll be like, how is it possible you're an
right,
introvert? But I
right.
am. But I can turn it on, right?
Yeah.
So I can easily turn it on and be an extrovert when needed.
That's what's fascinating to me because I would consider myself an introvert, though people see me in movies and blah, blah, blah. And they think, oh, he's not an introvert. Oh, look at him. He's outspoken. No, I'm an introvert. I'd rather be right here in my library and just reading my book or writing my next book. So when I watch you in the Kindness Diaries or any of the material you've been doing, you look like you just boldly, as an extrovert, walk up and start asking questions. So I couldn't help but wonder, watching you, did did knowing you were being filmed make it easier for you? Did you know nobody's got to punch you in the face? Nobody's going to be exceedingly rude, I don't think. Knowing there's cameras, they can see the cameras, right? I mean, doesn't that make it a little easier for you, or did it have nothing to do with it?
Look, on some level, obviously, having a camera makes people feel safe
Yeah.
and makes the journey easier. Although there are people that don't like cameras. Yeah.
Mm,
So sometimes it helped, sometimes it didn't help. And I will say that I've traveled extensively around the world, most of the times without cameras. And I find that connecting with people is not as difficult as one may think. For me, the secret sauce is to find what you and them have in common. The
mm.
moment you find that commonality, it's so simple to connect. It's that commonality. Find it as soon as possible.
And that makes a lot of sense. But I also know that when you walk up to somebody, you don't have a lot of time. And from what I saw in the Kindness Diaries, for example, you pretty much go for what you want. I am traveling around the world. I don't have any money. I'm traveling on the kindness of strangers. I need a place to sleep. I need food. I need whatever. You're pretty forward with it. You're not making rapport or contact, or am I missing something with that?
Yes. So I can't go up to people with a camera and just start filming because
Mm,
that's invasive and they're not going to be very happy with me. I see you have
ah,
a sign that says "Be happy." They will not be happy behind you if I do that. So what
okay.
I do is I go up to them without the camera.
Ah,
I tell them what I'm doing. We make a bit of a rapport. Then I go back with the camera and we
gotcha.
start filming. And that first moment is, I'm not going to say scripted, but they know what I'm going to ask
Yep.
them. And then from that moment on, it's all free spirited stuff.
You have made me feel so much better because I was imagining the bluntness that you were going through. So I
Uh,
feel lots better about all of this. So let me back up because this is the other thing. I'm making a connection with you in probing. So thank you for being open and transparent. When you were thinking of going out for the very first time, you saw the movie, a couple months pass, you're going to go and do this first adventure here. How serious were the self doubts?
I mean, the self doubts were enormous.
Yeah.
And I have a little trick actually. I don't think about the self doubts. With the kindness diaries. I basically came up with the idea. I called my crew. I said, "This is what I'm going to do. Arrange everything that needs to be arranged, right? Which is buying the cameras, etc., etc., etc. I'm not going to think about any of this until I walk outside my house and start the journey." And basically, that's what happened. Now, it's good and bad. The good is that I don't become over anxious prior to the journey. The
Mm,
bad is the moment I walk out of the house, all the anxiety that I haven't been feeling hits me in the
there.
face. Right. So, whatever. I'm not so sure it's a good idea, but that's how I do it.
But what about along the way when you have anxiety hit and you want to turn back or you question your sanity and you say, why am I doing this? And there's times where you're going through 10 people and they've all said no, and you don't know how many more. You're getting closer to the yes, but you're also hungry and out of gas. How do
Look,
you? Mhm,
yeah, look, there's many moments that happened. And I
yeah.
remember one specifically, I was having a bit of a meltdown and I
Mm,
was like, I was speaking to the crew, everyone's saying no. I can't do this anymore. Why the hell are we doing this? And my camera guy looks at me and said, Leon, whose idea was this? And I was like, ah, yeah, it was my idea. All right, then let's keep going. Right. So there were definitely moments of wanting to give
Yeah.
up. Absolutely. I mean, of
Yeah.
course, it'd be totally lying if I said, oh, the moment I walked out of the house, everything was hunky dory. There were no problems and it all worked itself out. No, there were many, many problems that you guys didn't see on the show. Many things that happened that if I'd known they were going to happen, I wouldn't have gone. Pretty simple, really.
Right. All right. So what I'm fishing for, besides hearing this wonderful story and getting to know you and your decisions, is what we can learn from what you've gone through. So in other words, there's people that are watching or listening to this show and they're getting inspired. Maybe they saw the Kindness Diaries. Maybe they're going to go read the books that are out there, or your new book, Go Be Brave. And they've got the idea, okay, I'm going to do something. And I don't know what it's going to be. But first they got the self-doubts. And we got to get past that. And then second of all, when they actually do begin the journey, how do they stay on the journey? You had one, I'm going to let you answer in a second, but I want to tell you, I was looking through Live, Love, and Explore, and this only arrived today, so I didn't get to finish the whole thing. But you talked about the faith that people look for comes after you've taken your action. It doesn't come before it. You might make a decision that this is going to work out, but actually the faith is in the action itself. Now, is that correct? Did I misread it? Where are you at
No,
with it?
I mean, when it comes to faith, you just have to believe
Hmm.
that everything is going to work itself out. And that doesn't mean you have to like not plan things, right? You have to plan things, you have to give yourself the best chance, but
Hmm.
you have to have faith. Like when I walked out of that front door all those years ago to do the Kindness Diaries and circumnavigate the world, I had to have faith that I was actually going to make it across the world. And did I think I was going to make it across the world? I mean, if I'd thought too much, I would have been like, there's no way I'm going to make it across the world. It's just madness. It's never going to happen. But I didn't think too much. I just felt in my soul, in my heart, that I was going to make this happen. And I was protected along the way. I was protected by people. I was protected by forces that are beyond my understanding. And I managed, with the help of many human beings, to circumnavigate the world. Because, of course, I couldn't have done this by myself. Because if it was about doing it by myself, I wouldn't have got the gas to get out of Hollywood. I wouldn't have been able to get to Vegas. I wouldn't have eaten my first meal. None of these things. I had to have faith in humanity.
Mm. Hmm. You had to have faith in humanity, but did you have total support when you walked out the door? Meaning from your father, from the lady in your life, from friends, associates that you had at work before you left? Did you have 100% support to take the dive?
Not really, because they all thought I was, it was a bit of a nut job, which technically I am. You have to be a nut job to buy a vintage yellow motorbike and circumnavigate Earth. You have to be a good nut job to do something like that, right? So I think they were concerned. They were concerned. You've got this nice job, you've got this nice girlfriend, and you're about to circumnavigate the world and take up to 6 months of your life away. Are you sure you want to do this? And like I said, I try not to think. I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. This is what I'm doing, and that's it. And I did. It sounds simplistic, but that's kind of how I did it.
It's not quite that simple though, because your thinking, according to what I'm hearing, was selective. You weren't overthinking the pitfalls to it, but you were thinking about how to get your kindness one vehicle on a ship. And you had
Yes.
to prep for that. You had to make phone calls for that. I know when I was reading the Kindness Diaries, all that you did to prep before you went out the front door. So on one level, no, you're not overthinking it. Maybe the word is you're not over worrying about it, but you are planning. You do have a strategy. Like when I get to New York, in order to get on this boat, I better have the boat arranged in advance. So there's a
Yeah.
combination of letting go and planning. correct?
Yes, yes, absolutely. I had to do some thinking, and this
Yeah.
is where the crew and the backup people helped get me to where I needed to be. So I did
Ah,
some thinking. Of course, I was the one that found the ship. I called
mhm,
many people. They all said no, but one company said yes.
mhm,
But then the logistics of it were done by the crew.
mhm. Got it. Okay, the other thing that bothered me about the Kindness Diaries, both the book and the movie and the TV series, is you really made it hard on yourself by not allowing yourself to have money. Not even gas money. Now, I know on a previous trip, when I said in the introduction, you allowed yourself $5 a day or £5 a day, whatever it was. That's good. You gave yourself a little bit of assistance. Why did, and I may be saying it wrong, but it seems like you made it difficult for yourself. Why did you make it that strict? No money, no travel, no gas, no movement, no food, no eating. Why
So
that strict?
yeah, so you know, as a broker, I had money, but I was depressed and anxious, and inside I had nothing.
Hmm.
So unconsciously, because it wasn't conscious, I flipped it. And in the Kindness Diaries, I had no money, and the only sustenance I could get was from the generosity and the kindness and the soul of other human beings.
Hmm.
So I had lived one way, and I flipped it in the show to live another way, where
Mhm.
it wasn't about money, it was about love.
And it definitely is. You know, I was in tears at different points in your Kindness Diaries. When I tuned into it, it was on Netflix at the time, and I just saw the name Kindness Diaries. What in the world is Kindness Diaries? And I watched an episode, and I love the concept. I love what you're doing, and when you do these wonderful things for certain people who had, out of their own kindness, done something for you, and you do something big and surprising for them, oh, I just fall apart. It is so moving. As a result of the Kindness Diaries and just that trip alone, did you come back thinking we're gonna be okay as a species, as a population? And I'm saying that with the frame of, after it, we go through a pandemic and war and unrest and political warring and arguing and division among family and friends and social media. I mean, it seems like it's kind of a psychological civil war going on. But when you came back going through the Kindness Diaries and what you experienced with all these people who did help and many who did not, did you come back fortified in our future?
Look, I'm going to answer that by sharing what I learned the most on my trip.
Beautiful.
Because if we can latch onto that, the thing that I learned the most, then there's hope.
Okay.
What I learned the most, and that was the most profound, is that ultimately, at the base of who we want to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to be loved.
Mhm.
And we are all the same, irrespective of religion, irrespective of color, irrespective of how much money we have or how much money we don't have, whether we live the north of a border or south of a border, at the base of our humanity, we are all the same. So I'll tell you a quick story. I was in India. I was sleeping in the slums of India for a couple of nights. Now on the outside, there's a lot of poverty, there's a lot of pain, but on the inside, there's so much love. I woke up one morning and I saw this lady, impoverished lady, no doubt, kiss her two kids goodbye for school. And in that moment, I realized that her love for her kids are exactly the same as your love for your kids.
Mhm.
We are the same. And if we allow people to make us out to be different, then there's no hope. But if we accept and feel and understand that we are the same, there is more hope.
That is very beautiful. How do we awaken that sense within each of us? How do we get to the point where we see that the person that maybe previously we were judging or not liking in some way, shape, or form is actually the same as us. They have loves, they have kids, they have desires, they have goals, they want to live their lives. How do we move the needle to that kindness place, the heart place?
Instead of living from our minds, instead of living on a fuel of Fox News, CNN, whatever it may be, the left or the right, we live on a fuel of the heart. We
Mm,
live on a fuel of the soul. We get connected to what it means to be human. That is how to do it. Now, I'm not saying it's easy because we're all lost in this world of 24-hour news, of Instagram, of Facebook, of Twitter, of TikTok, and we lose connection to ourselves.
mm.
And that's really what the new book, Go Be Brave, is about. It's about remembering to be human. What do I mean by that? I mean, speak your truth. Speak your truth. Go out into the world and feel what it feels like to be in nature, to be vulnerable. That is the greatest act of bravery. Don't get me wrong. It's brave to go to war. It's brave to go and save a kid from a burning building. But the truest act of bravery is to reconnect to our humanity. And you do that by being vulnerable, by speaking your truth, by sharing your pain, and ultimately by standing in your power. That is how we change things, one person at a time.
You said a couple times about speaking your truth. From the psychology that I've read, I've I'm told that there is no reality. There are about 8 billion versions of reality, meaning that each person lives in their own subjective universe. And one of the reasons that we don't coincide is that our universes don't line up. My view and somebody else's view, we might have some lap over there, but then there's a collision because our beliefs aren't the same. So when you say truth, what exactly do you mean? Can you give
But
me an example?
absolutely. And the fact that you said there were 8 billion truths is brilliant. I'm talking about bravery being my truth, one of the 8 billion truths. And I'll tell you a little story.
Please.
It's in the book, Go Be Brave.
Hmm.
I was 24, 25 years old. I was at a low point in my life, and I went to a spiritual retreat for depression and anxiety.
Mm.
And in that retreat, I met this very scary looking fellow. We'll leave it at that. And it turns out that this guy was a Navy SEAL. He was a Navy SEAL. And I was pretty scared of him. But at the end of this retreat, I had thought that this guy was super brave. Of course, he was doing what he was doing. But he turned around and he said something that changed my life. He said, true bravery is people in this room sharing their pain, sharing their truth.
Mm.
And I never forgot that
Mm.
because each person may have a different truth, but you have to share it. If you're depressed, find someone who is safe and share it. If you have anxiety, share it. If you have an addiction, find someone safe and share your truth. It
Mm.
all starts from inside us. And I love the way, I'll say it again, I love the way you said there were 8 billion truths. There are. But if you share yours, you're more open in a vulnerable way, you're more open to hearing someone else sharing theirs. And it's a domino effect.
Beautiful, beautiful. So why did you write a new book called Go Be Brave? Wasn't the book before that Go Be Kind? How, how did you move from kind to brave?
So, you know what? People always say to me, it was really brave of you to go around the world. It was really brave of you to go from Alaska to Argentina. And I started thinking to myself, well, I understand their definition of bravery is a little bit different, but what was really brave about doing these things? It all started when I was 15 years old. I was being bullied. I
Mm.
told no one, no one. And then one day I went to my mother's house, not my mother's house, my mother's room, and I told her the truth. and I lost it. I started crying, and I was vulnerable, and I was being brave. I was speaking my truth. And she took me out of the school, and it changed everything. And I never forgot that moment. And the Kindness Diaries was a kind of, as we were going to the domino effect thing, it was like a
Mhm.
domino effect of acts of bravery, going to that spiritual retreat, speaking my truth, leaving my job. It all kind of was me following my heart, being vulnerable, standing in my power. And it all kind of culminated in that action of doing the Kindness Diaries. That was the true act of bravery, not circumnavigating the world. Small acts of truth telling, my
Mm.
own truth, small
Mhm.
acts of being vulnerable that got me to the place of being able to get on that motorbike and circumnavigate the world.
That's beautiful. I can imagine that a lot of people are going, "This sounds so exciting. This sounds so cool." And you seem like you're in a professional adventurer at this point, which we'll talk about in a minute. But also, how do you handle fear? Fear. Not this isn't just doubt. This is fear. Fear for your life, fear for your safety. And I'm imagining the people watching or listening, they got their own little dream that they want to go be brave and do. But there's that not only doubt, but there's the fear. What if I fail? What if I get hurt? What if I regret this? What if this is the worst decision of my life? They got all those fear-based questions. What would be your advice to help them with that?
Don't be 107 years old
Mhm.
on your deathbed
Mm.
and looking back and thinking to yourself, oh no, I didn't live. I wanted to open a bakery and I didn't do it. I
Mm.
wanted to become a scientist and I didn't do it. Oh no, be 37 or 24 or 47 and say to yourself, I am going for it. I know there's fear. I get it. I get it,
Mhm.
but I'm going for it. And I'm not going to think too much about what's about to happen. And I'm just going to do it. There's a famous kind of, I don't know if the conquistadors,
Mm.
they burnt their ships.
Yeah.
They arrived and they burnt their ships because they knew that the fear would be so great that they would go home. And you asked me, I think you asked me, you said something about the camera crew.
Yes.
I brought the camera crew along and it because it was a way to burn my ships. Do you think I
Mm.
didn't want to give up? Of course I did. I wanted to
Mm.
give up all the time, but I can't give up because I've bloody hired these camera people. I want to inspire people. They're filming it. I burnt my ships. Burn your
Wow.
ships. Find a way to burn your ships. Don't if you have a real ship, please don't burn it. But like, metaphorically, do something. Put it on Instagram. I want to be a baker, and I promise that
Mm.
in 1 year's time I'm going to have a bake shop or whatever it's going to be.
Mm.
Burn your ships. Be accountable to someone else.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. I love it. Um, I hope you don't mind, but I need to probe a little bit and ask a couple questions, which you don't have to answer,
Sure.
but I'm going to ask anyway.
Right.
And one of them is, are you happy? Are you happy?
That's a great question. And I'm going to be honest with you.
Hmm.
And I'm going to tell you that there are times when I'm not happy. You know, it's so funny you asked me that question. I was just having a chat with a friend of mine before this podcast.
Hmm.
And I said to him, the guy's going to ask me all these questions. I'm going to put on the kindness guy face and just go for it. Right. And I'm not going to tell him the truth. And by asking that question, you gave me an option. Do I lie or do I tell the truth? And the truth is, there were times when absolutely I'm not happy, right? There were times when, I used to think that writing books, doing shows, standing on stage would make me happy. And I'm proud of it, but there are times when it just seems hollow. There are times when it seems empty. There are times when the thing that I want most is love. There are times when the thing I want most is to feel connected. And sometimes it feels like I'm totally disconnected. So, yes, to answer that question, there are times absolutely that I'm not happy.
Thank you for answering that. Now, I do know that one of your most recent trips was in my words, a search for God.
Yes.
And you went to India. Can you tell us about that? What prompted that, and where did it go? What did you find? Because if you found God, tell us the
Where to look?
location,
The location.
the
So look,
GPS.
yeah, this is a documentary that we are on the cusp of finishing.
Hmm.
Um, Basically, I had a dark night of the soul, and I found a book by Yogananda, The Autobiography of a Yogi. I opened it literally randomly to one page, read a paragraph, and in it he says to his soon to be guru, "If you reveal God to me, I will follow you anywhere." I have an epiphany. I'm like, that's it. That's the answer. You said earlier, are you happy? Then I wasn't. And I said, in order to be happy, I need to go and find God. Went to India with the understanding I was not going to leave until I found God. I stayed there for months. And one day, I found God, the energy that lives in all of us, the universality of love, the universality of oneness. And in that moment, I realized I didn't have to go to India to find God because it's everywhere. It's here.
Mm,
It's right here between me and you. It's
mm.
out there in the beautiful hills that I live in. It's everywhere. Right. That's a short version of what the documentary is about. And it's really a journey to inspire people through my pain and their pain that
Mm,
there is another way to live.
mm. You've been wrestling with the devil, so to speak, throughout your life, based on what I know from your books and the Kindness Diaries, devil being discouragement and depression.
Mm.
And they've prompted you to make decisions, most of which were to leave the house and go on your adventures. Is that part of you healed?
It's a very excellent question. And I will say that I'm known as the kindness guy, right? I
Mhm,
travel a lot. I've been to over 100 countries. Lately, I don't want to travel.
mhm,
What does that mean? That means that the seeking, the searching outside of myself, which was helpful, right? Deeply helpful, isn't necessarily needed as much.
mhm,
And the true understanding of my power, my love, my heart comes from sitting still, from staying still. After this, I have to get on a plane to go and give a speech. I love giving speeches, but since we're in the realm of total honesty, I don't really want to give this speech because I want to just sit still. I want to sit still,
mhm,
sit by my tree, look at the clouds, and be present with myself. I
mhm.
don't need to go out and travel in the world anymore. And it's kind of giving me another existential crisis. I love existential crises, it seems. Like, what do I do next? I don't know.
Thank you for being so honest there. I wanted to point out, as you know, I'm an author. I said that at the beginning, that your books are masterpieces. I love how they're written. And the Kindness Diaries, I mean, it just feels like it was sculpted. It is just a masterpiece of a book. And so is your new book, Go Be Brave. So you have a skill there, whether you developed it or inborn, that you should write more books. Do you have more books coming out or planned besides the one out or coming out, Go Be Brave?
I mean, look, this is coming out
Yeah.
very soon. And
Hmm.
as you see, it's all about freedom, right?
Yeah.
And you asked some beautiful questions today, some
Hmm.
beautiful questions. And I felt safe with you. So I
Good.
just forgot that we were being taped and I just went for it, right? Um, but do I have other books? Yes. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, I just want to sit under a tree and like commune with the universe. So I don't know what's going to happen. But this book is coming out, and hopefully it inspires some people to kind of do some adventurous things, and not just the external adventures. I'm talking about the adventure in here.
Mm.
That's the
Hmm.
greatest adventure of all.
Hmm.
You want to be brave? Go inside.
Hmm.
That's true bravery. Go inside. It's not pretty. It's not pleasant, but it'll transform everything for you.
Mm. You said something interesting. You said go inside, but you said it's not pretty and it's not pleasant. Why did you say that?
Because we live in a world where we have been conditioned not to feel.
Mm.
And most of us never go inside. We never feel our pain. We pick up a drink. We go traveling. We turn on CNN or Fox. We look at Instagram, Facebook. I once heard, I actually didn't hear it, I read it. A brilliant, I think his name is Kabir. He's like an Indian mystic.
Mm.
He said something very simple. I should have actually heard this before I did my whole documentary, but he said, if you want to find God, sit still for 3 days.
Mm.
What a beautiful thing.
Mhm.
But we
Mhm.
don't sit still. It's it's chaos. It's chaos. Calm it down. Calm it down. Sit still for forget 3 days. I mean, you can do it if you want. 3 hours, 30 minutes. Just calm it all down.
And I feel that. Do you meditate
I do
every day?
every day.
For how long?
20 minutes a day. I used to do it for an hour and now I do it for 20 minutes.
And what kind of meditation?
I don't, it's not transcendental. I don't know. I just like sit and don't try my best not to think. And whatever
Right.
happens, happens. And look, there were some times where I can do the meditation and I'm like communing with like the spirit of Yogananda. And there are other times when I'm like, I can't sit still
Right.
and everything in between, right?
Right. Well, another honest answer. I appreciate it. Now, before we run out of time, I want to sneak in a couple questions that I like to ask. One is, you knew I was going to interview you, and I don't know how many interviews you do. I would imagine you do quite a few. But were you hoping I would ask a question that would give you a chance to tell a particular story or give a particular insight or really share something important to you? Was there something you were hoping I would ask? Because here's your opportunity.
Do you know what? To be honest, since we're
Hmm.
on the practice of being honest today, and
Hmm.
generally, I I just go for it. I don't know. You ask me whatever you want. I mean,
Hmm.
literally, I don't know what you're going to ask me. I don't know. Ask me. You've asked me some pretty tough questions today, right? Where I had to make a decision: truth
Hmm.
or lie.
Hmm.
And I went with truth. What's the point of coming onto your show and lying?
Right.
So I went with truth. So I didn't really have any specific questions. I thought you were going to
Well,
ask me.
let me ask the other half of that then, or the other side of that. Were you afraid I was going to ask something in particular? Was there something you were saying, "Oh God, I hope he doesn't ask me about that. I don't want to talk about that." What was
No,
that?
no, you can ask me whatever you want.
Okay.
Literally.
And thank you. The show is called Zero Limits Living, and I like to explore limits. Do you feel we have any limits? If you decided that you were going to, I don't know, people are going to go to Mars and you were going to take some sort of no money with me ride to Mars and go live off kindness over there, would you do it? My point being, do you feel that we have any limits?
Look, of course, we have limits. Like I can't, I'm 46 years old. I can't become a professional footballer for my team, Liverpool. I'm too old. I'm not good enough. That's a limit, right? Now, on other levels, there are no limits. Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, let's just go for it. Yeah.
Right.
So the answer to your question is, are there limits? No. The answer to your question, are there limits? Yes.
Well, that's the way life works. That's the ultimate truth. You got on one side, it's a yes, on the other side, it's a no. It's the
Yes.
same stick, but you're holding two different ends of it. So I love that that answer was there. So, what is your takeaway for people? What do you want them to do besides go get your book, go be brave at bookstores and Amazon and all of that? Is there something you want to challenge them with, something you want to leave them with, a quote, a thought?
I want them to know
Mhm.
that within them is a magnificent being waiting to be unleashed.
Mm.
And the way to get there is to speak your truth. Find someone safe. Share your pain. Stand in your power. And I promise you, not from the lips of a preacher, but I promise you that if you do that, you stand the greatest chance to live magnificently. If you don't do that, you will be 107 and you will look back at your life and you'll be like the PG-13 version. Oh no, I'm really sorry that I didn't live fully.
You know, I got to be honest with you. I thought that you were going to be somehow off your sofa charismatic with jokes and one-liners and a sense of bubbly happiness that would be contagious. And you seem far more centered and settled than what I imagined. Do you get that from people? Do they expect the man who on Instagram you call yourself the kindness guy? So you are the kindness guy. I would imagine people think the kindness guy, I imagine they bring some interpretations and expectations to that. Do you find that? Do you find that people are expecting you to be dramatic,
Yeah,
extroverted because of it?
yeah, absolutely. I definitely do. But I'm just a mirror of you, as you know very well. So had you asked me questions that weren't deep and weren't
Mm,
profound, then you
mm.
wouldn't have got deep and profound answers.
That's an excellent answer. That's an excellent answer. Wow. All right, one more thought. What else do you want people to do? Challenge us. What do you want us to go do today?
I
Besides
want
go be brave.
I want you to find one person who you know needs love, who you know needs attention, who you know needs to be made to feel like they have value, and give it to them and
Mm,
see how they transform in front of your eyes.
mm. Leon, personally, you have transformed me. I am forever grateful for the Kindness Diaries long before I ever knew that I would ever talk to you. And I don't know if you know it, but in my book that I held up, The Unexpected Kindness, I talk about you on the last pages of the book right before I challenge people to go and do unexpected kindness in the world. And I'm using you as the example. So I am forever grateful for what you have personally done for me, and by extension, what you've been doing for the world. All the people who read your books, all the people who watch the Kindness Diaries documentary and the other films that come out, and the one about finding God, and anything else that you do. You are doing work that is making a difference. You are awakening people, and I am grateful. Thank you.
That's very sweet. Thank you so much. I'm going to definitely get your book and be inspired by it too. Thank you.
All right. I'm Dr. Joe Vitale. You've been watching or listening to Zero Limits Living. The show is now seen or heard on 1,000 platforms across the galaxy. You can go to ZeroLimitsLivingTV.com to see all the episodes. Check out Miracles Coaching, miraclescoaching.com. I want to thank Lux Media Studios, Candace Barr, Chris and Nick in the engineering department. I want to thank my guests for being kind enough to be here. Go get his books, Leon Logothetis, The Kindness Diaries, Live, Love, Explore, Go Be Kind. The new one, Go Be Brave. Meanwhile, be kind and expect miracles. Thank you.
Glutathione is a big word. It's the body's own master antioxidant. It's a scavenger for free radical, bacteria, and viruses. There are no products in the market with the ingredient NASET. NASET increases the production of glutathione that's in our body already to strengthen and enhance our immune system, elevate sense of well-being, support muscle strength and endurance, cognitive function, and liver support. It helps with increased energy and blood sugar regulation. Get your bottle of GSH Plus from www.salvationnutra.com.